Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
did you hear that Sony is planning to revive a classic PlayStation 1 era RPG, but this time with a canine protagonist?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they're gonna call it Bark the Lad. Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your make a rhyming joke host, Madelyn.
We switched up the format there, and it really threw me off, host Emma.
Yeah, I tried a slightly different joke presentation, and I could see the panic in your eyes.
It's like, what do I say? What do I say? Do I have to ask a question?
Anyway, you might think it's a lazy joke, but if you've played Ark the Lad, Twilight of Spirits, is that right? Yes, Twilight of Spirits. This is the one I'm playing, and I can't even remember the title. You know that the developers basically do this. They're like, let's jump forward, and the guy's name is gonna be Dark now.
That's really funny.
So, Bark the Lad feels like very viable.
Is it Dark with a C?
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Yeah. So I was like, Emma's gonna think this is a really lazy joke, and everyone who hasn't played Japan PlayStation 1 classic Ark the Lad or any of the Ark the Lad games is gonna think it's a really lazy joke. And you know what? You're right. It is. But it's based in canon.
Aren't there animal people in the Twilight one as well, though?
Well, they're kind of monster people. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this week, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be talking about Ark the Lad and Mario Strikers Battle League. So get ready for me to invent FIFA Manager mode in about 40 minutes. But shall we dive into Ark?
Let's do it.
I should have made it a seal, and then I should have done Ark the Lad. That would have been funny.
You're right. That would have been definitely leagues funnier.
Battle League's funnier. Anyway, Ark the Lad is a 1995 tactical role-playing game developed by G-Craft and published by Sony for the PlayStation 1.
Yes.
It was in fact one of the first RPGs for the PlayStation in Japan.
So, wait, okay. The PlayStation 1, so I always get this confused. It's just the PlayStation, right? And then the PlayStation 1 is like the smaller version they released the same year as the PlayStation 2.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
It's the PlayStation. Sorry,
Yeah.
It's not exclusively for the PlayStation 1. There's also the PS1, which is the, bundle guy.
Is that different than the PlayStation 1?
Well, the PS1 is... I'm referring to the, novelty console that they released a few years ago.
Oh, isn't that the PlayStation Classic?
Oh, you're right. It's the PS1 Classic or something. Yeah.
I don't know. The first console is very confusing.
It is a little bit confusing. Ark the Lad is, in fact, on all of those if you're in Japan. It does feature on the Japan PlayStation Classic lineup, does not feature in the Western ones, for reasons we'll probably talk about.
Yeah, so, I mean, just the reason why I was particularly confused about the PlayStation now is, so you said it released in 1995 in Japan, but it didn't come to the West until 2002. But for PlayStation, and I was like, wasn't the PlayStation 2 released by then? And yes, it was, because they released the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 in the same year.
Sony be wild.
And I guess we're still making PlayStation games after the PlayStation 2 had come out. So apparently there was a very interesting period there in the early 2000s that I'd never really thought about before.
Still happening, kind of same thing happening here now, right? PS4 games still coming out.
Yeah, I guess so, you're right.
Anyway, as Emma mentioned, Ark the Lad was a Japan-only series for its first, 7 years.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So that encompassed Ark the Lad, 1996 sequel Arc the Lad 2, 1999 sequel Arc the Lad 3, and there's also somewhere in there like a monster raising and casino game.
Yeah.
And all of those except the casino game came to the US for the first time in 2002 in the Arc the Lad collection.
Yes, correct.
And so they originally weren't published in the US because Sony didn't think there was really a market for RPGs. And so everybody say thank you to Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
For convincing them that the West might enjoy a role-playing game or two.
Well, it's actually really interesting because the developer Gcraft was bought by Square in 1997. So I watched a retrospective that was like, you can see, like, you know, there's similar themes and elements to, like, Arc the Lad and Arc the Lad 2, and then Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, their thing, like, postulated that, like, well, Square obviously had their eye on this catalog because they bought them, so you could possibly see their late 90s games taking inspiration from Arc the Lad.
Absolutely. Well, Arc the Lad was very popular.
Yes.
In Japan.
Yeah. Was the 9th best-selling game in Japan in 1995.
And really is considered like kind of like one of the franchises of the PlayStation era.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I had never heard of it. It's another entry in our PlayStation and PlayStation 2 era games that died there, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of those, you know?
I know. I just don't know why they've only started turning up now, given that, like, this game would always have been eligible to be in the pool.
Man, there's a lot of games.
Yeah, I know.
I also had not heard of Arc the Lad before I put it in the hat, so, to be honest, in the early days, I would often put in games that I had heard of.
I understand. I just think it's been an interesting journey of learning for me to be like, this is the year where we talk about games that you can't play. Only you can sort of play Arc the Lad. It's unclear to me. I saw at least one blog post that suggested that potentially the original is available on the store on PlayStation 3. This is never something that I find out until it's too late.
I don't think it is. I
Not
think that is a
anymore?
lie. Maybe it was once, but I mean, I went searching for like just listings on PSN. And the Wikipedia page also does not have it listed. Usually when it's available for PS3, it'll have it there. But
Fair
it just
enough.
has PlayStation for the collection.
So instead, you can be like me. I opted for Arc the Lad, Twilight of Spirits this time. I really thought about doing Mario Strikers because I thought like local co-op and like we might have fun. But in the end, I decided to do Arc the Lad because I felt like I could kind of get the idea of Mario Strikers without playing it more than this one.
If you happen to have like the highest tier that has the PS2 classics of PlayStation's new confusing
It's premium.
Is it
tier.
premium? Is that the highest one?
Yes, it's
Okay.
plus extra
Well,
and premium.
it is included if you have the PS2 classics collection under whatever PlayStation subscription you happen to have.
I know that because PlayStation tried to push it on me.
That's very
It was
funny.
like, you could buy this game for like $15 or whatever, or upgrading for the rest of the year is only $21.76. And I was like, oh man, like maybe.
No.
I almost did it. I really almost did it. Because I was like, all I would have to do is like need one more game for the podcast from this list. And I'd have saved money. But I feel like there's going to be a Black Friday sale. I may upgrade to premium.
There's not a great collection of games, to be honest.
I
looked at it when they announced it, and it's not a lot of stuff.
That's true. They're adding stuff every month.
Are they? I thought they are not now.
Well, they just added Chicory. They just added...
But that's not like
Intergrade
their
is
classics
coming.
collection.
Oh, you're right. Fair enough. They're not adding stuff to the Classics collection, but I'm not just talking about the Classics collection. I'm talking about all the games that I would have access to.
But those ones aren't on premium. Those ones are on one of the cheaper ones, I believe.
Okay, so I'm waiting for Black Friday, and then I will make my choice. I think ultimately I will probably upgrade to one of the higher tiers because I want to play Final Fantasy, and like I just need there to be like 2 almost full price games. I'll stop talking about my purchasing decisions for the various PlayStation Plus subscriptions.
Okay.
Anyway, it is on PlayStation Plus Premium. It's also available sub $20 if you just want to buy it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my 2 hours or so that I played with it. This is a, RPG length game, but I got a little taste of like what the exploration feels like and what the gameplay feels like, and especially given that I've been watching like a lot of Fire Emblem over the past week and a half in my apartment. It was like a refreshingly like sort of like similar, of course, in that it's a tactical RPG, but it's not. So the first 3 games, which again, it's unclear unless you own a PlayStation or a PlayStation 2 and you want to spend whatever it costs to get that kind of like retro disc, how you would play those games now. But those 3 games are like squares based.
Yes.
Movement.
It pretty much looks like Fire Emblem.
Yeah. But Twilight of Spirits instead goes into kind of a little bit more of a free form, kind of like you can move anywhere in a circular radius version, which was interesting. It was not really what I was expecting. Whenever I hear tactical RPG, I assume it's going to be squares. And so it was a refreshing change of pace to be like, I can run around and I can set up my arrow to hit 3 units at once, or that kind of thing. So, satisfying enough combat system. I'm very well aware right now that I have like a lot of games sitting at like 5-ish hours played, and I need to like play some of them. But I'm interested in continuing this. And it has a character who they've not called him Dark the Lad, because he's only half lad, but that's pretty funny.
I think the only game that features Ark as the protagonist is the first one.
That's correct. He's in 2,
yes.
And I think potentially also 3, but yes.
The protagonist of 2 is Elk.
Mm-hmm.
Elk the Lad, I assume.
Elk the Lad. So, to talk a little bit about the first game and a little bit about the story going on here. I mean, you've probably guessed, given that we've said it's a JRPG. I mean, it's not the genre of JRPG, but it's a Japanese role-playing game. So in the first game, you play as Ark. You're in your little village, and you're wondering what happened to your dad. And so, like, you're kind of, like, going out to do that, and you meet this girl who's gotten involved in this whole, like, spirits mess with... She's from, like, the Flame Village, and there's a flame... I don't know how to pronounce this. Sion?
Sure.
Sion? And she's like, extinguish that, and that's lit out this like Ark ghoul, and there's guardians, and basically you gather a ragtag bunch of allies, and you travel all around your region, meeting spirits and gathering stones and trying to save the world. So, very classic, like, RPG plot here. And that original game is quite short.
Yes.
At least by RPG standards.
About 10 hours, which is a significant game, but yeah, for anything that was like an RPG, a tactics RPG, that is very short for that era.
We just talked about, games too long, right? On
a
recent episode. And yeah, it's like, so like I played like just under 2 hours of the fourth Ark the Lad, but the first one to get like released in the West in any kind of a timely manner. And yeah, it did sort of like hit home for me. When we were talking about that episode, I was like, oh, like 10 hours, like that's a pretty long amount of time. But it's taken 2 hours for the game to like really, like, I'm sure I still don't know all of the battle mechanics, but it's taken 2 hours to get to this point where it's like, oh, the game is sort of starting now.
Yeah.
So it is kind of funny to be like, oh, like, 10 hours is kind of short for this, even though 10 hours for so many experiences would be like, that's way too long.
Yeah. I mean, part of the genre of, like, the RPG is, like, this very slow setup, I feel like.
Yeah.
like a methodical setup of both whatever the story happens to be and learning the mechanics of the game as well. And like getting into more complex mechanics as you go. So yeah, 10 hours is very short. Arc the Lad 2 remedies that, however. With probably like 50 hours if you're just going through it, but could possibly extend up to 70 hours if you're doing a lot of the side content.
Yeah, Arc the Lad 1 through 3 goes through the classic hero's journey of the first game is pretty small and contained, and then it gets kind of like more and more and more open.
Yeah.
As you go through the entries.
I read a couple of places that there was some, but none of them had like citations, like on wikis and stuff, that some people at least believe that 1 and 2 were meant to be one game, but they ended up releasing them separately, with like Arc the Lad functioning essentially as like a prologue.
I saw that prologue language somewhere too, and I saw somewhere that like, you know, maybe for a while, like 2 was gonna release in the West, like they were gonna release 1 and 2 in the West together, and like 1, like if you finish 1, it like unlocks 2. I also didn't find any like super reputable citations of that.
It was really hard looking into like the production history of the first 3 games, actually. Like I was very confused.
The studios sort of don't exist. Like they just like don't exist.
Yeah. Because 2 and 3 are developed by Arc Entertainment as opposed to G whatever.
G-Charge.
G-Craft.
G-Craft.
But I don't. It's that's confusing to me. It doesn't seem to be the same company, but some of the same people worked on 2, but then not on 3. And just generally I found myself very confused by how this all worked. Because 2 is so much bigger, but released like a year afterwards from a different company, but integrated enough that you can take your save data from 1, and it will carry over to 2.
Yeah.
So, and I just couldn't find any sort of like retrospective or interviews or anything that I usually can for games like this. Probably because it was not a big thing in the West, to be honest.
Yeah. Probably there were some good retrospectives in Japanese.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, Arc the Lad has had sort of a sad denouement here in that. So Twilight of Spirits came out for PlayStation 2 in 2003. First one in 3D, right? Has this slightly different, this like evolution of the combat system, right? Still like turn-based, still this kind of like agility point, like turn order, classic combat magic items system situation, right? Party. So that comes out for PlayStation 2, but it's set like 1,000 years after Arc the Lads 1, 2, and 3, right? So it's the same world, but like totally new characters, right? It's dual protagonists with Karg and Dark, and it's developed also by a different company that also doesn't have a lot about, like, all of these are like companies that are like, they sort of don't exist anymore, and like there's no web presence, so it's hard to research. But then the next year, 2004, Arc the Lad End of Darkness comes out, set 5 years after Twilight of Spirits, but it's an action RPG, and everybody hates it.
Yeah.
And then you may think, but wait, Madeline, look, I googled this, and it looks like there's an Arc the Lad game that did that classic resurrection here in the past couple of years. And I'll say, no, Arc the Lad R is a mobile game.
You will actually find a lot of like abandoned PlayStation-y Japanese games that do have somewhat modern like mobile reboots or revivals that don't last very long.
Yeah, so Arc the Lad R came out in 2018 in Japan, and was localized in English for the West in 2020, which takes that grid-based tactical combat of the original games, like retcons everything that comes after Arc the Lad 2, throws some gacha in it, and says, have a blast.
Yeah.
But the Japanese servers, it's unclear to me. I didn't look into it enough to be like, are the English servers still operating at all? Can't imagine they are. But the Japanese servers shut down last summer in 2021. So it's gone now.
Well, it's still offline.
For existing players.
Yeah.
It didn't seem clear to me that like you could still do that if you didn't play. So, poor Ark the Lad.
You can watch the animated series if you want to, though.
That's true.
It's an adaptation of Ark the Lad 2 in 1999, I think.
And Ark the Lad 2 is everybody's favorite,
Yeah.
So maybe worth checking out.
Ark the
make-
Lad 2 sounded interesting to me, to be honest.
I know.
The setup seemed cool. Where it seems to indicate at the beginning that Ark is in fact a villain now.
Yeah.
Which I like when things do that. I think that's fun.
I know, it is fun to kind of like recontextualize
Yeah.
characters. There was at least a few reviews that kind of noted that like something that was weirdly a little bit unusual about Ark the Lad at the time was its continuity, right? That these RPGs, or even these RPG series coming out in the 90s, were much more often in the kind of Final Fantasy school of an anthology series. And so they were like, oh, like one of the big appeals of Ark is that it actually has continuity. I was like, that's so weird. I mean, it's not weird. I know that about games, but it's so weird that like the fact that this series has a sense of continuity is a selling point.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I feel like that's still a lot of big, especially Japanese games like Final Fantasy, do tend to hit on the anthology side sometimes.
Overall, though, I think Ark the Lad is probably not coming back. There's some of these series that I'm like, we've talked about over the past year that I'm like, oh, like, you know.
You know,
Probably.
Well, I guess he's not there anymore, but they had the original creator for a while. But Square Enix seems enthused to just let people do what they want lately. I don't know how many, like, AA releases Square Enix has put out this year, but it feels like a lot. Or bringing back things like Tactics Ogre is around the same era as Ark the Lad, and is now being revived this year. The Valkyrie series as well is getting a new release this year. So I mean, anything's possible.
It's true. I just mean that this kind of like, well, okay, so I guess it was popular in Japan, which maybe gives it a little bit of extra zest behind it. But it does sort of feel like the market for like this, there's like not really a Western market for this, probably. There doesn't seem to be. If the lack of like too many retrospectives that I could find was any indication, there's not like...
I mean, they put out Live Alive too.
You're right. Look, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying it has even less kind of like bring it back cult classic coverage than some of the similar games that we've talked about on the show. I do think though that this kind of thing, like, I don't know, like, do you feel like 10 years from now anyone will ever be like, like whatever? Like, I just feel like there's fewer of these kind of like series bopping around now, these like mid-tier series, to be like, whatever happened to what game?
Hard to know.
Yeah. You're right. Of course. You'll be like, where's the next card game?
Where is my 50th voice of cards? By that point.
Well, you ready for some football? For some soccer?
I'm ready.
For some
quote-unquote soccer.
Farting on a soccer ball?
Yeah.
So, Mario Strikers Battle League is a 2022 sports game, specifically a soccer game, developed by Next Level Games, published by Nintendo for the Nintendo Switch. It came out in June.
It's another significant revival of a series, you know?
You're right. No, that's true. It feels a little different when it's like
With
like
Mario, yeah.
hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, like, it's fine. Like, that's true. You're right. It is a significant revival. Gives hope for Ark the Lad. Don't lose hope, Ark the Lad. If Mario Strikers can do it, so can you.
Yeah, the original Mario Strikers was 2005 for the Wii, I think. Or GameCube?
I think GameCube.
And then Mario Strikers Charged came out in 2007 for the Wii. And there has not been any Mario Strikers since then, until now.
And now here it is.
Here it is.
So, 5v5 soccer game. Highly realistic and tactical.
I thought it was interesting that it's 5v5, but multiplayer only supports 8.
The goalie is
That's true. That's right. That makes sense now.
Which is fair. That'd be pretty boring.
Hey,
Sorry.
being a goalie is not boring. It's stressful.
It's not boring in real life. It'd be pretty boring when everyone else is getting to, like, blue shell each other and you're just, like, chilling. Maybe that would still be better than having an AI goalie, but gotta have that element of randomness.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah, not highly realistic, very chaotic. No referees.
Yes, there are no fouls, and there are
Lots of Mario Kart style items.
Yes, yeah.
Electric fence instead of out of bounds.
Of course.
By the way, they've started playing soccer on the field outside of my house, and I got really annoyed watching somebody do a throw-in the other day. She, like, every time this girl did throw-ins, sorry, we'll talk about Mario in a second, but I gotta give you the sports update. She would pick up the ball, she would walk forward a little bit with the ball, and then she would run, like, 10 more yards forward before she did the throw-in. I was like, you're cheating.
Yeah, I don't remember what the rule for that is.
You're not really supposed to, you're supposed to throw the ball where it went out of bounds.
But, I mean, if you go backwards, can you run up to where it went out of bounds?
The thing is that she did not go backwards.
Ah, I see.
She would pick up the ball, she'd take a few steps forwards, and then she would run way forwards. I got really angry about it, and it almost convinced me to buy Mario Strikers, because I felt like I needed that in my life.
Are these, like, official games that are happening over there?
There was a ref.
Yeah, but is it, like, rec league for small children?
They're not children. I mean, they're children, but they're, like, high school age.
Okay.
Anyway, I did the Princess Peach, like hands thing.
Okay.
Her Mimi, like, I'm sad I lost thing. Only I was doing it about the girl who was clearly cheating with her throw-ins.
Yeah.
Outside my window. Anyway. Yeah, in this game, crazy soccer. That's pretty much all there is to say about it. Crazy soccer. There's some, like, depth of mechanic to it, apparently, but...
Well, I think similar to Mario Kart, like, each of the characters have their own, like, stats, like, things they're good at.
Yeah.
So there's, like, strength, speed, shooting, passing, and technique. And each of the characters have their own, like, stat in that area, which you can also affect by collecting equipment that you can get through playing the game, essentially. And getting, like, the in-game currency.
So, unsurprisingly, this game is really built for multiplayer. Heck yeah. So you get up to 8 people play locally, which is dope. Or a huge group of 20 playing, like, a season tournament online, which is also dope. Single player apparently sucks, but who cares? Build more games for local co-op. I don't care about single player players.
The club was, like, confusing to me. It seems like you join a club, but you don't actually play with them.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was like you're part of a club, they set you up in 1-week seasons with, like, 4 other clubs, and you compete against them. But when you can do your matches whenever, and you can only play with one other person during those matches. I mean, you wouldn't want to require it so that, like, your whole club has to be there to play a match, obviously. But it does seem weird you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, send in a letter.
What? I'm just talking about the game.
I know. I'm just kidding. I was more saying that in reference to, man, a lot of people are grumpy about Mario Strikers.
It's really interesting, actually. So the main critique of Mario Strikers is just that it did not launch with very much content in comparison to, like, its GameCube or Wii predecessors. There's less characters, less stuff to do in single player, less stuff to unlock, and it seems to be on purpose because they're having, like, waves of DLC. And I've noticed that Nintendo is just doing this a lot more lately. Is, like, releasing, like, the very bare bones game and then doing, like, DLC waves that are generally free.
Yeah.
And I really wonder, I guess maybe they're aiming for, like, their games to have more, like, steady sales than, like, a big one at the start and then tapering off. That's my only guess for... Because it kind of reminds me of Animal Crossing a little bit, too.
Yeah.
Or, like, the most recent Mario parties they've released. Or even stuff like Mario Golf and stuff. It seems like they've, like, all these games, they add stuff as it goes. They've really embraced that sort of model.
I'd be interested what they have in their player data that is pushing them to do this, because I was thinking about this with Animal Crossing last month, because I picked it up for the first time in, like, a long time to play some of it, and I was thinking about how, had it launched with all of the content that it has, like, I know everyone was so like, wow, where's more content, unfinished game with Animal Crossing, but if it had launched with all of that content initially, I think it might have been too much for me. I think it would have been like, there's too many things, like, granted, obviously that first couple of months playing Animal Crossing was a unique time for everyone, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Animal Crossing as intended, even if it launched with all content, you would unlock that slowly, you know, similarly to a JRPG, let's say.
Right.
You might have been playing for, like, 2 months before they're like, okay, now the cafe's open. But that's not, like, something they added, it's just something that you unlocked as you continue to do work on the island. Sure.
But what I'm wondering is, so, like, in Animal Crossing, that definitely, regardless, like, it wouldn't have mattered to me if it was like, this launches today, or if it's, like, unlocks over time, right? If the idea there is, it's like, okay, we want to reward play over time, and so that's why we're spacing out some of these features. I mean, in Animal Crossing, it's obviously because some of the stuff had to get developed, right? But, like, whatever. Let's say it was intentional, too. But I do... like, it draws in my mind comparisons to how, like, the streaming platforms are now pivoting back again to, like, appointment TV, right? To, like, instead of dropping everything all at once, to doing it week by week. And I do wonder if, like, they've got something in their player data that's, like, actually, we get people to come back and play more if we add new characters over time than if it launches with 20 characters.
Yeah.
Because with something like Mario Strikers, like, obviously it's a balancing act, and I'm thinking of this with Animal Crossing too, of, like, eventually someone has put down the game too much, right? They're too far away, they've put it down too permanently. And so it's this balancing act of, can you launch the content at the right time that someone who has put it down for a couple weeks will come back and play some more, when otherwise they just would have been done.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting, this idea of, like, launching it versus, like, unlocking it. Like, I'm thinking of, the Smash Bros. Before Ultimate was, like, Brawl, right?
Yeah.
And in that one, you had to, like, unlock characters by doing matches, right? And then, like, after a match was done, it'd be like, warning, Marth, or whatever. And you'd have to beat that character to, like, add him to your roster. But that wasn't, like, you know, adding characters. That was just, like, as you played more, it encouraged you to play single player more. Which does feel like, especially Mario Strikers has really de-emphasized.
Yeah.
Because there's really not much to do single player beyond like go through the tutorial so that you can play multiplayer. And it also Striker stands out to me because like they released wave 1 of their free DLC less than a month after it released, which really was like, well, why wasn't I don't like being that person who's like, why wasn't this in the game at launch? But when it's less than a month after you release the game, I do sometimes think, well, why wasn't Daisy in the game at launch? I feel like that would have...
Yeah.
Unless they were like, oh, if we don't put Daisy in, people will be mad, and they'll talk about it.
Which they were mad.
Yeah.
And they did talk about it, so mission accomplished.
Yeah, I guess so. And there's supposed to be 2 more waves coming this year. Although they haven't said when or what those will be yet.
Honestly, to me, it seems like a really smart strategy for a game like this, right? Mario Strikers is probably more or less review proof, right? Like, unless it got just like really awful reviews, right? This is not a game, like, you're buying this game for your like preteens to play together, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, of course, adults play it too. I'm just saying, like, this is, like, very family-friendly, like, let's all play it together when everyone's home over the holidays or over the summer or whatever kind of game. And so it's definitely not a game that's, like, really relying on, like, it's gotta hit this Metacritic score.
Yeah.
Or it's not gonna sell. And also, to me, and granted, I say this as someone who is, like, doesn't have, like, a wildly favorite Mario character and isn't necessarily super, like, character motivated in general outside of a few franchises, right? Like, I don't play gacha games so far, and so I don't have a lot of that kind of, like, I have to have all the characters. That's not totally true, but here's the point that I'm getting at. Because all the characters are customizable anyway, how much could adding Shy Guy and Daisy really, like, change the competitive meta of Mario Strikers, right? It's just an opportunity for them to get more of the fun, like, losing animations out there on Twitter, which Existential Shy Guy is very good. Mm-hmm. I like it. And to get the people that were, like, angry about Daisy tweeting about Daisy, right? So with a game like this where, yes, the roster seems kind of thin, but also, like, how much does that affect the game in any meaningful way other than you're pissed to not see, I don't know, dry bones or whatever?
But I mean, like, if the stats aren't going to affect the game in any meaningful way, then it is about, like, expression, right? You're choosing the character that you like. And if you're, like Daisy's notable because she's been in, like, every, like, party Mario game. She's, right, like, one of the staples at this point.
No, I agree. Look, I hate to be the Nintendo's releasing an unfinished game person here, but, like, the marketing upside of this is obviously way too good.
Yeah.
To just be like, here's everybody at the beginning for this game that is going to be like a perennial seller for them, and that they also probably want to have a lot of hype around the holiday season. Like, you've got to have a new release there.
Yeah, I'm actually, there's some ways I'm really interested in this too, is because, like, I don't know if Nintendo plans to release, like, any new game for some of, like, are they ever going to release another Smash Brothers? Or are they just going to bring Ultimate forward? Are they ever going to release another Mario Kart? Doesn't seem like it. You know, do they want stuff like Mario Strikers to just last forever? You know, and just keep releasing new stuff for it over, like, years, like they have with Mario Kart.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
This is the end game of them having been like, the game will be $60 forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, really the only major thing missing, the thing I hope that they bring to Mario Strikers, I couldn't quite tell, but I don't think it's back, is the classic Waluigi crotch chop.
No, I don't think it's back. His animation's good, but no crotch chop.
Like, twisty legs with the rose are great. It would be much better if it ended with a crotch chop. Hopefully that's coming for Christmas.
Hopefully. Yeah, that's a good Christmas present. For your kids.
There was some, like, interview, like, I don't know why, like, this was the video retrospective that was out there, but they were, like, talking with the people who did, like, the original, and they were like, no, like, Nintendo, like, nobody ever really said anything about it. They were like, it was fine. Like, we just did it. So, you ready to mash? The Monster Mash?
Yeah. Mash it, Madeline.
It's so hard.
Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Like, sort of. It doesn't bring enough of the sports game into it, though, to be honest.
I know, I just took Mario and the tactical turn-based gameplay. That's all I took.
It's tough, right? Because it's like, yeah, if you do it that way, you get Mario and Rabbids. If you try to bring, like, RPG to a sports game, you get, like, the ever-increasing FIFA Manager mode.
Hey, I would take more sports game RPGs. As I say too. Regularly on this show.
I would too. I love that Mario Strikers gets the same complaint as, like, every sports game. That's like, it's not different enough from the past. It's like, is it not good enough that we have it here 15 years later?
Yeah.
Okay. It's gotta be creative, right? This is just like Pyre is just like you fight in sports.
Yeah, kind of.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Okay. I gotta get to the mashup before Supergiant beats me to it here.
Supergiant does just kind of do this, I feel like, sometimes.
That's really what makes me feel like the underpinnings of this exercise are valuable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, there do seem to be games out there that basically just are this, or studios that basically just do this, and I'm like, I'm trying to create a portfolio for you here, basically. Okay. Okay. You're like a bunch of, like, ex-sports ball players. This is kind of ripped from Battlestar Galactica, but that's okay.
Okay.
Right? Like, you're like, previously, you're like the Olympic team, or you're a sports team. No, you're like a sports team, like teammates. And while you're doing your, like, world tour, war breaks out.
Okay.
And there's, like, a combo of, like, exhibition matches to help promote world peace, but also battles using your sports skills.
So it's like on the front, on top, what the people see it's exhibition games to sort of promote world peace. But behind the scenes in the underground, all of, like, the world leaders are, like, betting and pitting their best sports players against each other. So actually these matches decide the fate of the world. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's fun.
I'm not exactly sure, though. Does that just mean the gameplay is, like, very boring FIFA? Like, where's the spice to the gameplay?
This is from neither game, but I do feel like it could benefit from, like, some, like, choice-based things or, like, pressured things, Like, like, if you throw this game, this will happen. We'll give you this, and right. You have to choose. Well, you choose or you accidentally lose the game, I guess.
I'm wondering if, like, there's also, like, so if there's, like, the, 5v5 actual exhibition games, I'm wondering if there's, like, every once in a while you get, like, no holds barred, like, underground matches where the goal is just to, like, kill each other.
Sure, yeah.
And there could be consequences to that. Now I'm taking it from Fire Emblem. I'm like, oh, your striker died in the the underground match? Too bad.
Yeah. This does have some, like, overlap with how Pyre works, but I think the story context is a little different enough that it's okay.
Well, Waluigi is there.
Yeah, also Waluigi's. There should be just a Waluigi look-alike with no explanation.
Does the crotch?
Yeah.
I think Matches is good. It takes the kind of like, weirdly, right? Like there's always this kind of like humans versus monsters kind of vibe. And that's exactly what sports games are like.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll add characters.
Yeah, and we'll add characters through DLC. It's a thing where you could have like DLC scenarios,
Yeah. DLC matches.
Yeah, yeah. And that could add characters to it,
Yeah.
Why not?
I like it. Feel like we got something here.
Yeah.
The Waluigi Warriors would be the name of the sports team.
Yeah. The main character just has a red bandana. I really feel like there was this, like, 90s era of, like, red bandanaed characters.
He has a red bandana and he used to be a plumber.
Exactly, yeah. That is the backstory, yeah.
Well, listeners, have you played any of the Ark of the Lads? Did you get the collection back in the day? Or the mobile game? Have you played Mario Strikers? Battle League? Do you have a favorite of their, like, celebrations? Everybody has a favorite of their celebrations. Do you wish that whatever obscure Mario character would turn up in Mario Strikers Battle League, like the Rabbids? Or someone else who's not there yet? Any of the
Could the Rabbids
that are not there yet?
Are they allowed to do that?
I don't know. Probably not, but it'd be funny if they were like the people in the stands.
That's true.
Just put the rabbits in there. I know. They're probably not allowed to do that, but you just never know. Nintendo has a lot of money. They can probably do whatever they want.
That's true.
Just have to pay enough money for it. Would you play our, like, political FIFA game with, like, some, like, death and DLC? If you have thoughts about any of those things or anything else we talked about this episode, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games that are in the hat Emma's about to pull from, and read our blog featuring long-running series, Split Screen, and Click My Boyfriend. And Emma's probably sometime soon this fall to return, like individual blogs.
This month.
Right. This month to return. Oh yes, most importantly, how could I forget this? You've got to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're on, oh boy, I just started to try to give our social media. Woo! Labor Day weekend, everybody. All right, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online on the app, Overcast, Pocket Cast, anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find Talk This. I don't usually mess this up. I can usually pretty much go on autopilot and just, like, go. But for some reason today my brain got...
Labor Day weekend, baby.
Labor Day weekend.
It's that 3-day weekend brain.
Next week, it's my side quest. Surprise, I haven't decided. So tune in to find out what games topic we're going to be talking about. It's going to be like autumn foliage and games.
I think you made that joke last time.
I did, and I'm going to make it again. It's going to be autumn foliage and games.
It's going
to be like back to school games.
I hope next week you introduce it like that and then say, just kidding. Was the joke funny the third time again?
Belated Labor Day joke. It'll be funny next week, okay. I promise.
All right.
But for now, Emma, what are we going to be talking about in 2 weeks?
For our old game, we're going to be talking about Epic Mickey.
It's unbelievable that Epic Mickey isn't a Kingdom Hearts game.
I know. I did replace the games in the queue this week, by the way, so we have a full 10 that's being picked from rather than 3.
Okay.
And for our new game, we're going to be talking about 2 Point Campus.
Back to school games?
Yeah, back to school games. Epic Mickey.
Well, look forward to Epic Mickey. I can't play Epic Mickey.
You could play. You'd probably enjoy 2 Point Campus, maybe.
Okay, I'm just thinking of me trying to like me playing a game, and like my boyfriend like coming in and be like, "What you playing?" And maybe like Epic Mickey, and then my relationship falls apart, and it's the end.
one thing Kingdom Hearts does to you is you can never look at Mickey Mouse the same way ever again.
Wouldn't Mickey Mouse be a great addition to Mario Strikers Battle League?
Imagine they did. Imagine they were like, and now Mickey Mouse for a final round of DLC.
Crotch chop Mickey Mouse.
No!
We'll get that in ours. It'll be the whole budget.
No.
All right, listeners. That's it for this week's show. Thanks for listening. Emma, do you have a sign off?
This week, I hope that you... No, I don't have one.
Okay, I got it. I hope this week you have a week that isn't Dark the Bad, but is Spark the Rad.